Hello and welcome back. I'm Mason Marangella, the Rig Doctor, and today it is a smoky day here in Northern California during fire season, so I am wearing an N95 mask just because of the air quality, which is so poor today. So please excuse the mask. I will do my best to articulate in spite of this. Today I'm going to be doing a video on one thing that many of you have been asking about for a year, which is about how to make your own Midi cables. So today we're all going to join the Midi committee, and I've got two different ways that I'm going to show you how to wire a Midi cable. One is using the pre-existing Midi cable that you can buy at any guitar center. Essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to snip it to length. I've already pre-cut this one, and I'm going to show you how you can re-terminate it so you have an easy way of making a Midi cable with perhaps Midi cables that you already have in your possession at the moment that you can just cut down to length and re-terminate with a new connector. I'm also going to show you how to make a Midi cable from scratch just using bulk cable wire just like this, so you can do it both ways depending on what your exact needs are going to be. So let's get into it.
My name is Mason Marangella. I build rigs for the industry's top professionals. Now, I'm teaching guitarists how to build rigs like the pros, with DIY tips, easy mods, and all the tricks of the trade. I am the Rig Doctor.
So let's start first with the easiest of them, which I think is buying a pre-made Midi cable and just cutting it to length. For most of us, this is going to suffice and it'll save you a little bit of time. And honestly, it's not going to be that much different in terms of cost. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to strip off maybe, let's say, about an inch or so. And you'll notice here on this Midi cable that we have a shield. So that's one of our conductors here that we're going to be using. So we have a shield, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 other conductors that have some insulation around them. So we have 5 total wires that we're going to be dealing with, including the shield as one of those. Now in Midi, we actually don't need to use all 5 of these conductors, even though if you were to look on the inside, you'd see that there are 5 pins. The outside pins for Midi on guitar stuff is almost never used. It's typically reserved for phantom power. So right away, to save yourself a little bit of time, we actually can remove a couple of these and be just fine. But the problem here is because we're using a pre-made Midi cable, we need to figure out which color wires those middle 3 pins are. So the easiest way to do that is to get a multimeter. Typically, the shield is the middle, I've found, on most Midi connectors, but we'll see if that's true today. Let me set it to buzz. Yeah, so that's the middle, so we're going to need to keep that guy. Clip to that. Let's see which one the green one is. All right, that's one of our other middle. It's to right of middle, so we need that one. Let's see about red. Clip to the red. Okay, that's the outside one. I don't need this one. I'm just going to cut it away right now so I can eliminate what I don't need. So we have 2 of our 3 conductors here. Let's go a little further. Let's see what black yields. All right, that's the other outside one, so I can clip this guy away. Now, process of elimination would tell us that white is going to be the other one, but I'm just going to cut it away just to make sure I didn't make any sort of mistake. Double check that. Perfect. All right, so these are the 3 wires that I'm dealing with. We're going to go ahead and we're going to solder this together, and basically we're going to match the pins here to the pins on our new Midi plug. So we've already determined that the shield part is the middle, so I'm going to wire that to the middle of my plug. So here's my Midi plug. This is what's known as a clocking plug because it can move just like a clock can move. I'm going to disassemble the set screw I'm going to open up the housing, and I'm going to put the housing, I'm going to reserve it right there. But the thing you need to remember to do first is you do need to take the kind of rubber boot, and you do need to slide that through first. If you don't do that, the assembly is not going to be quite right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Midi plug. I'm going to clamp it in my vise. I got it clamped in my vise, and I'm orienting it the same way that I'm going to orient my plugs here, because these need to line up. These need to match. So whatever I have on this pin needs to match this pin. So I'm making sure that I orient them exactly the same so that they match on both ends. We'll test that at the end too. There is a small kind of brass piece that is inside of this Midi plug. This is designed to kind of help hold the cable steady, but you'll see in this case that it actually won't fit. The diameter is too thick here. We don't need to use this. I'm just going to disregard that and not going to use it for now. Now again, we already determined that the shield is going to go to the center. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to tin this guy. It's just a fancy word for saying pre-solder. And this is just so I don't have any of those wires moving around once I start to assemble. I'm also just going to put a tiny, tiny bit of solder right on the pin. Perfect. Now this is where the rubber meets the road. It's a little bit tricky to do this. I'm going to cut this down slightly just because I don't need quite that much room. And I'm just going to set it right on top and I'm really just reheating it at this point. Perfect. So that's nice and solid, nice and soldered on. So we know that's the middle, but now I just need to make sure that I'm making the yellow and the white go to the right pins. So right now I'm going to double check that. I'm going to clip the white. And I want to see if this is going to the right or left of center. So I'm orienting my Midi plug so it matches what I have here. And it appears as though that one is to the right of center. So I'm going to repeat the exact same thing here. I can cut this down slightly because I don't need quite that much room. I'm going to strip off just the tiniest bit. I don't want to strip off very much. I just want to expose as little wire as possible because I want all the benefits of that insulation. Perfect. And I can see a little solder kind of dripped over a little bit, so I'm just going to kind of cut that piece away. And process of elimination tells me that this one is going to be soldered to the left of center. I'm going to strip that off again, tin it just slightly, and I'm just going to reheat. And we have 3 cleanly assembled wires. Now before I put the housing back on this, I want to give it a quick test. So I'm just going to clamp this guy in this position just so I'm not chasing it around. And I'm just going to do a quick test to make sure everything is where it should be. Okay, so I'm going to go right of center, good. Let's go right in the middle, good. Left of center, perfect. So it's all buzzed out. It's telling me that it's functional. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to unclamp it. I'm going to move my rubber boot up. And then I'm going to decide now what position I want the clock to be in. Now, if the Midi plug orientation, say, is like it is on the Strymon, you're going to want it to be kind of a frown. Now, some of the plugs are different than the Strymon ones, and they're reversed. They're flipped upside down. If that were the case, you would want to turn the clock to reflect whatever angle you want the Midi cable exiting. For this one, it's actually going to be on a riser, so it's going to be coming straight down. So I'm going to be leaving it like this. I'll then take my set screw, and I just want to make sure now that as I'm looking at the plug, it's not obstructing the hole, because this is going to have to go through and fit all the way through. And here I have a perfectly assembled Midi plug that reflects the center 3 being wired to the opposite side center 3. We're not using the outside again because that is for phantom power. And if I wanted to put it into my Strymon device, Push it right in. And again, I could adjust this angle if I wanted, but right now I'm just setting it to kind of be on the ledge of a lift, something like that, so they can just come straight down and it can dress into whatever it needs to dress into. So now that you've learned the basics of how to make your own MIDI cable using a pre-existing one, I'm going to show you a new way that you can start it all from scratch. So what I have here is a 5-conductor cable. Any 5-conductor cable would work, and even in fact a mic cable, which is twisted pair shielded, it has 2 conductors in a shield, would also work just fine, because we're going to end up cutting some of these away, because again, in most guitar pedals you never need to use the 2 outside pins. Those are typically reserved for, as you guessed it, phantom power. So what I'm going to do, same exact technique. I'm going to strip off a little here. Now let's see. We got the same exact, it looks like the same exact color scheme on this one. The cool thing about doing your own though is that you don't have to check what the already existing pinout is on the opposite side. I don't really like dealing with the shield that much on these, and I'd rather just designate one of the other center conductors to be the shield. So I'm actually just going to cut this away in advance. Again, it doesn't matter which ones you choose, they just need to match on both sides. All right, and let's choose, I'm going to choose black, yellow, and red. I'm going to cut away the white. And these are going to be my 3 center conductors. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, because I want this to match up. As I'm doing it, I'm going to cut away the shield. I'm just using black, yellow, and red, so I'm cutting away white. So now I have matching 3 colors on both sides, black, red, and yellow. So all we're going to do is we're going to designate these to a pin, and we're just going to match them up on both sides. So let's go grab our MIDI plug, and let's put it together. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did on the last one. I'm going to take apart the housing. And remember, the first step is you need to put on the boot. You don't want to forget that. If you forget it, it's not going to go together properly. So I'm going to put on that boot. So now I have 2 identical MIDI plugs. Again, whether you're using the clocking one like this or a straight MIDI plug, the exact same principle applies, same soldering techniques apply. I'm going to solder these in the order of the colors in terms of its alphabetical order. So it's going to go black, red, yellow. So in that way I always keep my bearings. I know that I'm going to start with the closest letter to the beginning of the alphabet with B, then R, then Y. So I'm going to go black, red, yellow. That's going to help me keep track of where everything goes. So I'm going to strip off just the tiniest bit, just like I did on the other one. I'm going to tin that. I'm going to do the same with the other ones. Perfect. I'm going to do the same and just tin in here. Don't really need a whole lot of heat on this either, because there's such small pins. It's pretty easy to get in and out. Just going to heat that up just a tiny bit. I'm leaving very little of this exposed in terms of the wire. I'm making sure that as much of the insulation remains on the wire so that it has the least probability. Actually, as you can see, I didn't follow my own advice. I didn't go in alphabetical order. Red should be in the middle, and then yellow at the end. All right, I'm going to match it up on the other side, same exact thing. Now I'm going to bring in the other one. We're going to match it up alphabetically. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tin these. Again, going alphabetical on this. Really just heating this guy up. Red next. I got a little excess wire here, so I'm just going to come in with my snips. Can't really blow on it very well with a mask on. But let's see if we got it right before we assemble it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp this side. face up, I'm going to clamp this side, and we're just going to make sure it all buzzes out. So I'm going to start on the left this time. So go left of center, left of center. Good. Center, center. Good. Right of center. Perfect. So we all buzzed out. It's telling us that everything is functional, everything is connecting through. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the housing. So remember, I'm going to slide the boot back up. I'm going to determine the position of the clock. Again, if I'm using Strymons like I am, like that, it's going to be a frown instead of a smile. But you could adjust them in whatever position you want in between those two. I'm also making sure that my wiring is not going to impede the screw. It's not. Housing is going to go back on. Screwing it together. That's my first side. I got a nice smile there. Let's go to the other side. Bringing up the boot. Put on the housing. Put in my screw. Tighten it up. And there you have your own customized MIDI cable. So this is how you make your own DIY customized MIDI cable. Remember, you don't need to use all 5 conductors. The outside 2 are for phantom power. You could put them on there if you wanted to, but there isn't going to be any benefit in 99.9% of the guitar pedals out there. You can do it just like this with your clocking plugs. I'm going to link all the materials we used today, including these high quality MIDI plugs. I'm also going to link straight ones as well, which is the same technique. And so you can get everything you need in order to make your own DIY MIDI cables, so you can have your pedal board styling in no time. Until next time, I'm Mason Marangella, the Rig Doctor. See ya.